thanks for tuning in. Today we are upcycling a old and very purple dress from the 80s that I found at a thrift store recently. It's got some pretty amazing shoulders and some lots of buttons, and I have a little plan to sort of make it a little more contemporary so I can wear it out and about around town. But before we dive in, I just want to give a little shout out to a project I've been working on. If you've checked out my Instagram lately or been by my Etsy shop, you may have noticed some cute little bags. I am running a little campaign for the month of June. I wanted to show my support for Pride, as it is Pride Month for the month of June. And I'm raising some funds for a really great charitable organization called Rainbow Railroad. They're a Canadian-based organization here in Toronto, and they help support LGBTQ individuals who are seeking a safe haven from state-sponsored or enabled violence. So they help issue emergency plane tickets and help cover travel costs and basically help get them to a safer country. They're doing some amazing work. If you're unfamiliar with them, definitely check them out at rainbowrailroad.com. And I've got a small collection of little change purses and pencil cases, and there's still some fanny packs left, and all the proceeds, there it is, all the proceeds from the bags are going directly to the organization, to the charity, and all the lining have these super cute, I don't know if you can see it, little hearts and peace signs, and they're super colorful and a lot of fun. So I'm still going to run this campaign for the rest of the week, and I'll even keep it going right into Canada Day weekend. So July 2nd will be the last day for these little guys. And they're gone forever. Okay, so that's that. You can find more information on my website at wallacereed.com, and that will link you not only to the Etsy shop, but also to the Rainbow Railroad website if you want some more information. Okay, so let's dive into this upcycle project, shall we? Alright, so here are the before photos. Check out those awesome shoulders and those wacky arms. And you can see it's too big in the waist and just all over. The dress doesn't quite fit me very well. And here are my inspiration photos. Still doing the double-breasted, but we're definitely going to lop off those sleeves. So that's the first thing to do. So it's easier if you turn the dress inside out. And I did that, and I found that there's a serged seam, and then there's a straight seam. So I'm going to use the scissors to just cut off that serge seam, because it would take way too long for me to hand pick all of that out. And then from there I can just pick out the straight seam. And that will free up the arms for us. Because I know I don't want sleeves, we don't have to be too delicate with the removal of them, but we don't want to take off any excess fabric, any more fabric than we absolutely have to. So here I'm taking it out. And I do want to kind of save the sleeves because they're kind of pretty. So I might do something with them later. So we did the other side. And now we've got our kind of like tunic dress with no sleeves. Cool. So we're well on our way. And now I'm just going to use a basting stitch to kind of just hold it together. Just because we've lost a little bit of the structure by taking out the arms. And I just don't want anything to start shifting on me. This isn't totally necessary, but it just kind of made me feel a little bit better to sort of hold all that fabric together. Just about done. Perfect. All right, now I'm ready to start doing a little bit of the alterations to the body of the dress. I've done my little sneaky trick where I put the dress on the mannequin inside out so I can just take it in from the side. I know this mannequin is very close to my size. If you don't have a mannequin, maybe have a friend help you, and you can actually do the alterations on you, which is even better because then you're getting a more accurate read to where you want things to be taken in. So I did the left and the right side. Just took it in maybe like 1.5 inches, and this is me just using the sewing machine to just sew it, and I kind of tapered it down to kind of bring it back into the side seam. Easy peasy. And then do the other side. Now, moving on to the fun part, the buttons. So, this dress has some pretty cool, very 80s buttons, but I wanted to kind of calm it down, and so I got these cute sort of lavender fun buttons to replace it with. And also, I'm going to utilize the double-breasted front and overlap it a little bit more. So you can see I'm actually going to overlap it by about 1 inch. So while I'm taking off the buttons, I'm going to mark where the new button is going to go. Yeah, and the old ones were a different style, and I'm changing up to a 2-hole flat button. So I'm just marking it, yeah, about an inch over from where it was, because that's going to help me bring the dress in about an inch as well. It's kind of a sneaky way to kind of cinch it in the waist, and I know I can kind of get away with this because it doesn't mess around with the bust measurement too much on me, but depending on your shape, just be careful because it does kind of put other things out of whack. But that's why you try it on, and then you can play with it. So here I'm sewing on the button. If you need any help sewing on buttons, you can go back and check out episode 2, which was all about sewing on buttons and different kinds of buttons, and some tips on how to secure them so that they'll stay on really well. So you can always go back and check that out if you need a little bit of a refresher for buttons. So we got our first button sewn on. I'm just securing it on the back here. Only got like 8 more to go. Just kidding. I'm only going to do the first one. There we go. So that's what the buttons are going to look like. Alright, so we got all the buttons done. Now we're moving on to the shoulder. So I've decided to do 3.5 inches from the base of the neck here to the shoulder. And so I'm making a chalk line to note the rest of the fabric that I want to cut off. So I'm just taking it down to the pre-existing underarm hole. I don't want to go any lower than that. I've just decided that that's an appropriate length for me for the cross the shoulder based off of my measurements, based off of how it's on this mannequin. So there's no real rhyme or reason other than that of why I'm cutting off this much fabric. I just want to sort of trim up the silhouette a little bit and make it a little bit more sleek. So I've marked it with the chalk, and now I'm just cutting off this excess fabric, getting it out of the way. I love when you can speed stuff up, eh? Isn't that great? Okay, so I've got that chopped off, and now I'm just going to sew on the bias tape that I have that I got really lucky and found in the exact same color. Okay, so this is a extra wide double fold bias tape. I learned my lesson from the last upcycle when I tried to make my own. It is difficult. It's much easier if you can find it in the right color. So we've got our armhole here, and I'm going to make my life a little bit easier. And I'm just unpicking that side seam that where we took it in by about 1 inch. So this way we can hide the end of the bias tape into that seam, and then I will stitch it back up after the fact. So we're going to open up our bias tape, our double fold extra wide, and I'm going to sew the one side of it all the way along the armhole, just like this. And then once we're done that, the other side will fold over, and then we'll do another stitch, and it'll just clean up that armhole so nicely and just hides that rough seam. Okay, so now all we gotta do is we're going to pin it. Here we go. So we're just gonna pin it all the way along. Just a little bit finicky, but you can just take your time. And the thing with the bias tape, it is cut on a bias, so it's got a little bit of stretch to it, which is super awesome when you're trying to go around curves or around a circle. So now I'm using this machine because it's got the removable arm, so I can sew around the armhole. Does that make sense? Because some machines don't have the removable arms, you're left with a flat surface, which you can totally still do, but you just need to be really careful that you don't catch other parts of the fabric while you're sewing. Because with this one, I can just slide it right over the arm. And here we go. So I'm just going to sew the one half of the bias tape down, and I'm going to go all the way around the arm. It's a little finicky, but you just kind of have to play with it and take your time. And also know if you make a mistake, you can always go back and take it out, because that's what seam rippers are for. Thank goodness. You can see some remnants of an old shoulder pad there on the left, just under my left hand. Those were gone long before I found this dress. And we're just about done. There we go. So now we're just going to go back and we're going to pin it again. So now we're going to fold the other half over. And I've turned the dress back inside right. So I'm looking at the outside. So I just find it a little bit easier because then you're looking at the stitch that you're going to see the most. So while you're pinning this, just keep in mind, sometimes depending on how you folded it, while you're sewing it, it's possible to not catch the back part of the bias tape. I made that mistake before. So just take your time while you're sewing it and just kind of keep checking to make sure that you've caught both sides of it. It helps when you do a really good pin job because then it'll stay in place. So now we're just sewing that in place and doing that last finishing stitch on the arm. And you don't have to hug right towards the end of the bias tape because that also might put you at risk of missing the other side of it. But just do what feels comfortable, what looks right for you. And here we go right at the end. And then here I'm just closing up that seam again that I had opened so we can hide the bias tape in there. And there we go. And then you just do the same thing for the other arm, exactly the same way. And then here is our lovely clean seam, and you can't see the end of the bias tape. And now I'm just going to take out those basting stitches as well, get them out of the way. And then the last thing we're going to do is I'm going to hem it. I'm just going to bring it up about 2 inches just to bring it up above my knee. It's a little bit more flattering. So I'm going to pin it up and I'm going to do a hand stitch. You don't have to, you can just easily sew it on the machine, but I like to do the catch stitch or the herringbone stitch. It is a little bit more time consuming, but it's nice and clean and you can't see it from the other side, which I love. If you need a little bit of help or refresher on your hand sewing for hem, you can go back and check out episode 5 where it was all about hemming a skirt and I take you through how to do this specific stitch step by step. See, you can't see it from the other side. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's a really cool stitch to know how to do. And voila, finished dress. So fun. Thanks for hanging out with me while we fix this one up. I think it turned out pretty great. Can't wait to wear it for the summer. So, thanks for tuning in. You can always come hang out with me over on Instagram at Wallace Reed. And until next time, see ya!